You know, that collective sweet lie we all believe in, right? The illusion that pain is just a simple glitch in the system. Something that can be patched over with the right therapy sessions, productivity hacks, or self-help books. We treat emotional suffering like a software bug, believing that if we just find the right code, we can debug and delete it. Maybe some of it really can be managed, sure. But there is a much deeper kind of pain, that absolute pain that emerges when the bottom falls out of your world, which no amount of positive thinking or strategic perspective can ever put back together. This is exactly the pain Lev Tolstoy understood when he wrote Childhood in 1852. That slender book most people dismiss as a charming coming-of-age story. But it's not all that charming. Because Tolstoy knew the truth we have been running away from ever since. Childhood doesn't end when you turn 18 or move out of your family's house. It ends the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you, that the world is not fundamentally a safe place, and that those people you thought were invincible gods are just fragile, selfish humans stumbling in the dark, just like you. I'm sorry, my friends. The book opens with Nikolenka, a 10-year-old boy living in a Russian country estate. Even though he doesn't know it yet, his entire universe is about to collapse. Early on, there is a scene that merely describes a carriage ride. He and his brother are being taken from their home to Moscow for their education. Nikolenka sits in the carriage, watching the familiar landscape slip away through the window. The birch trees, the pond where he used to catch frogs, and the house where his mother still stands on the porch waving, shrinking until it becomes a white speck against the gray stones. It is not a dramatic scene. No one screams or cries. There is just a boy sitting in a carriage, watching his home disappear. But Tolstoy makes you feel the weight of that moment to your very bones, showing that the distance is not just physical, but an existential rupture. Something that will never return is coming to an end. That house, that safety, the feeling that the world is a warm and predictable place, it is all shrinking and fading into the past. Even if Nikolenka cannot name it yet, he knows it. He is leaving Eden, and the doors are closing behind him. This is the first fracture, the physical detachment from the safe zone. But the second fracture is much worse, because it happens directly inside his own mind. Nikolenka's father is an aristocratic, authoritarian, colossal figure who makes everyone straighten their posture when he enters a room. To a child, a father is not just a man. He is the architecture of reality. He is the one who sets the rules, who knows how the world works, who stands between you and chaos. But then, Nikolenka watches him one evening at a card table in Moscow, gambling with other men, and something shifts. He sees how his father's face tightens with greed and anger. He watches him lose money and then coldly snap at a servant who brought him the wrong drink. He sees that pettiness, selfishness, and weakness. It is like watching a colossal statue crack open to reveal the reality inside. His father is not a god, he is just a man. A flawed, ordinary, sometimes cruel man who makes bad decisions and cares more about winning a card game than the people around him. This is the second fall. The first was leaving the safe place. The second is realizing that there never was a safe place to begin with, because the people you trusted to build that safety are just as lost as you are. And this is exactly where things get uncomfortable, because this is the exact moment when most of us start looking for new saviors in our own lives. When you realize your parents are just human, when the illusion of their invincibility is shattered, you don't suddenly turn into an independent, self-sufficient person. You panic. You seek new gods. You try to find new authority figures who will tell you that you are good, that you are on the right path, that you are valuable. Maybe this is a romantic partner you expect to validate your every insecurity. Maybe it is a therapist you secretly hope will fix you, handing you a plan for a painless life. Or maybe it is an online guru or a self-help book promising you the 7 steps to inner peace. Don't get me wrong, I am not belittling therapy, love, or seeking guidance. These can be lifelines. But there is a massive difference between using them as tools and substituting them for your own willpower. A map does not mean an engine. A therapist can show you where your wounds are, but they cannot close them for you. A partner can hold your hand, but they cannot walk your path. As long as you keep looking for your new parent, your new authority, your new safety net in others. You remain a child. You sit in that carriage, watching the world through a window, waiting for someone to tell you when you will arrive. Tolstoy shows this with brutal clarity in the scene at Nikolenka's first ball. Nikolenka is 13 years old, feeling awkward and desperate. He has to dance the mazurka with a girl named Sonechka. The ballroom is full of elegant adults, and Nikolenka is terrified. Not because the dance itself is hard, but because he believes everyone is watching him, judging him, and expecting him to make a mistake. He stumbles through the dance steps, overly aware of his own body, his sweaty palms, the way his legs refuse to move as they should. And throughout all this time, he is not actually there. He is not experiencing the dance. He is performing for an invisible audience and constantly checking himself. Am I doing this right? Do they think I am pathetic? Am I good enough? It's a moment we all know too well, isn't it? The crushing weight of social anxiety, the feeling that your worth depends on how others perceive you. Nikolenka has handed his self-worth over to the crowd. He has made them his new gods, his new parents. If they approve of him, he will exist. If they don't, he will fade away. This is a trap. We lose that initial safety of childhood, and instead of learning to create our own stability, we keep outsourcing this job to others. We turn into addicts, constantly begging for validation from bosses, lovers, and strangers on the internet. We treat other people's opinions like oxygen, and we suffocate when we can't get enough. The cruel joke is that this never works. No matter how much external validation you receive, you can never fill the void left by that first fall. You can gather thousands of compliments, millions of likes, but when you are left all alone, the demons in your head suddenly appear. Because you are trying to solve an internal problem with external solutions. And then the worst thing happens, the thing that cannot be fixed, managed, or overcome by changing your perspective. Nikolenka's mother dies. This is not one of those gentle, poetic deaths you see in movies, where someone peacefully closes their eyes while soft music plays. Tolstoy doesn't give you that comfort. He shows you the deathbed in all its ugly, horrifying reality. Nikolenka is brought into the room, and his mother's face is contorted in pain, her features distorted and almost unrecognizable. There is nothing beautiful about this. There is no final moment of wisdom or a tender goodbye. Death is the fundamental truth of existence, that absolute reality that slaps us in the face, showing how absurd all our attempts to control and optimize our lives truly are. And here is the moment Tolstoy captures with such devastating honesty that it makes a person want to turn their face away. After his mother dies, Nikolenka stands by the coffin, crying. His heart is truly broken. His grief is entirely real. Yet, right in the middle of that grief, even as tears stream down his face, he catches a thought in the corner of his mind. Do I look sad enough right now? Are people looking at me? Am I performing my grief correctly? This is terrifying. At the same time, it is the most human thing in the world. Even in our deepest pain, the ego survives. Even in our most vulnerable moment, there is still a part inside us adjusting its posture, performing, trying to manage how we are perceived. And Nikolenka despises himself for this, which only makes the situation worse. He cannot even mourn purely. He cannot protect even this single, unfiltered moment of emotion from the poison of his own consciousness. This is not a flaw in Nikolenka. This is the human condition itself. We are always, to some degree, watching ourselves. We are always split between the one living the experience and the one observing it from the outside. Modern culture, on the other hand, tells us this is a problem that needs to be solved. Be more mindful. Focus on the moment. Fix your attachment style. Heal your inner child. Of course, these things can help you cope. They can offer strategies to manage that split. But they do not close the wound. Because the wound is not a malfunction. It is human nature. It is what makes us human. The pain of his mother's death does not pass for Nikolenka. It does not resolve by turning into a story of closure and growth. That pain just stays with him, as a permanent scar, a weight he must carry. And this is exactly what modern self-help culture refuses to accept. Some pain is not temporary. Some wounds do not heal. You cannot simply leave certain losses behind and continue your life. You move forward with those pains. You build a brand new architecture around that massive absence. You learn to carry that weight without letting it crush you. But the weight is still there. The grief is still there. And claiming otherwise is nothing but another lie invented to escape the fundamental truth that life shatters you and you can never return to the way you were before. If you find yourself sitting with heavy thoughts like these, consider subscribing and joining us. Let's walk toward more real days together. So, what do you do when the safety net is gone? When no one comes to rescue you and when your pain can never be fixed? You can spend your whole life in denial, searching for new gods, new solutions, new systems that promise to make you whole. Or you can do the thing that is terrifying. You can take responsibility, not in that self-blaming, guilt-ridden way that modern discussions often misunderstand. A responsibility in the existential sense. You can accept that this is your life, your pain, your wreckage, and that no one else is going to come and clean this up. Blaming your family, your circumstances, your bad luck. All of these might be justified. They might all be true. But this does not change the fact that you are the one who has to live with that wreckage. You are the one who has to decide what to do with those ruins. Tolstoy gives us the model for this through the quietest character in the book, Natalia Savishna, the old servant who raised Nikolenka's mother and then stayed in the house to raise Nikolenka. She is not the main character. She has no dramatic scenes or long monologues. But Tolstoy makes you feel her presence, the weight of her quiet mastery. Natalia has lived a hard life. She was once in love, but was forbidden to marry. She gave up her own happiness to serve her family. She lost people she cared about. She carries all of this not with pain or complaint, but with a silent dignity. She works. She takes care of things. She doesn't turn her suffering into a spectacle, nor does she expect appreciation for the sacrifices she made. She simply lives, fully and completely, taking responsibility for her own life without waiting for someone else to validate or save her. She does not anchor her worth to anyone. She has no need for applause. She is just real, completely, undeniably real. This is the thing no one wants to hear, because it sounds too harsh, maybe even cruel, but at the same time, it is the thing that works. Taking responsibility for your own existence, your own pain, your own failures, and your losses is not a punishment. It is the way to become real. Because as long as you wait for someone to fix you, as long as you keep blaming your past, your circumstances, or your family for why you are this way, you are not actually living. You are just haunting your own life. You are a ghost, drifting through the days, waiting for permission from someone to exist. And that permission never comes, because no one can give it to you. You have to take it yourself. This is exactly what Tolstoy understood. Childhood does not end when you leave home or when your parents die. It ends when you finally accept that you are fundamentally alone. This is not a loneliness in the sense of having no one who loves you. It is a loneliness in the sense that your life belongs only to you. Your pain is yours. Your responsibility is yours. And this is terrifying because it means you can no longer hide behind anyone else's authority. You cannot blame your upbringing, your bad luck, or the unfairness of the world for your failures. You have to stand in the middle of the wreckage of your own life and say, "This belongs to me. I will carry this. I will build something out of this. Not because it's fair, not because I deserve it, because I am the only person who can do this." Why would a person choose this? Why would you willingly shoulder that weight when you could continue blaming, looking for saviors, waiting for someone to put everything right? The reason is this: because gravity is what allows you to walk on the earth. Without it, you drift into the void and get lost. Responsibility is your spiritual gravity. It is the thing that pulls you into your own life, into your own body, right into the present moment. It is what solidifies you, what makes you real. When you fully own your pain, your choices, your failures, you cease to be a ghost. You stop drifting. You become heavy in the most beautiful sense. You exist. You become undeniable. And yes, this might be uncomfortable, but it is good. Yes, it is hard. Yes, you will carry scars and losses that never fully heal, but you will be real. You will live. Not as a performance put on to gain someone else's approval, not as a victim waiting to be rescued, but as a flawed, broken, and beautiful human being. As someone standing right in the middle of their own life, carrying their own burden, walking forward no matter what comes. This is not a consolation narrative, it is the very heart of the matter. This is exactly what growing up is. It is not to stop feeling pain, but to give up expecting someone else to come and take that pain away from you. It is to look at those ruins and say, I will build something new from here, not because I have to, because I can, because I am here, because this life is mine, and no one will do this for me. Thank you.